Is that election season? And I guess I can go ahead and say sitting in the hot seat, John, is John B. Romero Martinez. Did I do that right?
That's right.
Okay, good. Got that. You're worth running for House District 44, which covers what territory exactly?
House District 44 pretty much covers what's considered almost like Ward 1 in City Council. It's just a little bit smaller.
Okay.
It's East 5th Street, going to the refinery, heading up towards West 5th Street, and then most of the west side going up Snyder and pretty much cutting off there at Pershing Boulevard there. So there's a little cutout, little area there. South Cheyenne's trailer park back in that area there. It's pretty much an L shape.
Okay. So now anyone calling in right now, if you have questions for Mr. Martinez, who's running for House District 44, absolutely. If not, join us back in a few minutes. By the way, questions can be called in at 632-6500. That's 632-6500. Is this your first time running for something?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. So, actually, to answer that question is, I think I saw something posted. My opponent was the first to announce, but that was not quite accurate.
Okay.
I ran in 2016 against House Representative James Byrd. He's decided to move on to tackle the Secretary of State position. And at the end of that election, in my speech to the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle, or at least my comment to them, was that I would again run this year. So, actually making John B. Romero Martinez the first.
Okay, you pronounced it a whole lot better than I ever could. I'd never get that.
I had to roll those R's real quick to sound authentic.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start so people know who you are. Originally from where? Born where?
You know, originally I was born right here in the capital city.
Okay.
So I'm a Cheyenne native. I was born in what was then called Memorial Hospital. Now it's changed names. So.
Okay, and then this would get people curious. So what high school?
Well, I live in South Cheyenne, but the high school that I went to was actually Central High School, and before that I went to McCormick Junior High School, where I played football for Ron Royer's football team, and we took back-to-back what was considered like state champion for Pee Wee football.
Right.
I was a right guard and a right cornerback, and so we took the championship 2 years in a row, and that was really fun.
Okay, but when you're having a drink with the buddies and you're talking about your glory days, I wouldn't bring up Pee Wee football.
Probably not.
It's kind of going back a little too far.
It might be going back too far.
So then, out of school, decided to do what for a living?
You know, Central High School, I was pretty much an art student.
Okay.
Got a sociology degree at Laramie County Community College, and since then I've pretty much done communications work, so communications, computer systems, IT work, and then also just general labor work throughout the region.
Okay. So now what's the interest in politics? What makes you decide to get into politics?
There was no decision. It was an always. You know, since the age of 16, I've always been involved in the community. I've never seen politics as a, quote, as people would say, politics. I really hate politics. In fact, when I got to sociology, I was going for sociology, anthropology. There was the discussion of making it a triple major when they were doing Plan Cs at UW. They're not doing that anymore, so it was going to be a SOS, poli-sci,
Right.
CJ. And so it's always been an interest since a young age. The first time I really got involved in a board where I was serving and we were voting and making decisions was at the age of 16 at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, when we received a Campaign for Human Development grant, and we started the Trueness Clique, and we did a lot of good things in the community. So that got me involved way early. By the age of 18, I was right there at the courthouse to register to vote, and I think younger people should do the same thing. As soon as they turn 18, they should go register to vote. As soon as they're excited to drive, they get that license most of the time, but maybe not as much as they used to, but really encourage younger voters to get involved. So it started at a young age.
Okay, so as far as elected office or experience that people might care about for and let's make sure I get this right, this is House District 44 that you're running for. What kind of experience do you think you bring to that?
Well, I think what I bring to that, first of all, is even coming from a young age, and it's still important, is I learned a lot of important facts and factors from, I would say, even just know-how or policy, how to run Robert's Rule of Order in a board meeting. Right. So that's really important. When I went to LCCC, I did serve as an intern aide for one Democrat and one Republican, so I was bipartisan from the get-go. First registered as independent. You know, I'm on the Republican ticket this year. I was on the Republican ticket last year, and I've made a home in the Republican Party. And so these are some tactics, tricks. I think of things like football. I'll always relate things back to football, so when I say tricks, I'm thinking of like trick plays or this type of thing. Right. So I always have kind of a football or a sports veneer about it. But being able to know how a bill becomes law and going through the legislative process, I think, is important. Being an intern aide helped me see what it was like to watch a bill be drafted and go through the process if it was killed. And I remember following the ethics law at the time by House Representative Harris, and then Burns, watching some of his bills, and some they didn't make it all the way, but you had to go and research. And this was even right before everything was all put on the internet, so I was doing it the hard way. You'd have to go down to the LSO and get a print format and take it up to them. They'd have to line out something, and a lot of times it was just a matter of a word that needed to be changed because it was out of order or something like that.
Right.
So
you learn those details then. Okay,
learn those details.
As you head into your campaign here for House District 44, which I would bet in that part of town especially, that's a lot of just knocking door to door. I mean, is that basically how you campaign for something like that?
You know, that's the main way. That's what I did last night. It's also a lot of just talking to people,
Sure.
and I think a lot of that is just knowing people. And moved into town from Harriman, Wyoming, and like in early 90s, so going to McCormick and that kind of thing. I played basketball at Lincoln Park, Martin Luther King Park, and you get to knowing people just by playing basketball.
Sure.
You know, so a lot of it's just talking to folks and just reaching folks. And I guess there's different, more sophisticated ways to get the word out, but
knowing your community.
Yeah.
John Martinez sitting in the studio with me. If you have any questions for him, especially if you're in District 44, 632-6500 is the phone number. Let's talk goals here then. So you, let's say you land the job here. You're in as the House of Representatives here. Do you have certain goals, or for that matter, there's certain issues that are forefront in your mind that you'd like to tackle?
Yes, and the first major one, and people have heard me talk on different topics, but the first major issue would be, or an even stance that I would say, is that I'm 100% pro-life. That's important. So issues that deal with the life of a human being, the dignity of a human being from conception until natural death, and that's, you know, our entire lifespan. And in 2016, we got our first 2 pro-life bills, and even though I didn't win, I didn't roll over like some folks did if they lost the election and kind of just evaporated. Or no, I stayed involved. I became a citizen lobbyist. People didn't pay me. I paid my $5 and did my best to represent those issues, and we got our first 2 pro-life laws on the book that really helped the health of the mother, contrary to popular belief.
Right. Okay, yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the heavier issues like budget in just a moment. It's AM650 KGAB Radio.
When Laramie County needed a new county clerk, Deborah Lee answered the call to service. She stepped up to the challenge, bringing a fresh perspective and years of experience to the job. As Laramie County grows, we need an experienced county clerk like Deborah Lee. Keep experienced leadership working for you. Vote Deborah Lee, County Clerk.
I'm Deborah Lee, your Laramie County Clerk, and I would appreciate your vote in the Republican primary.
Paid for by the committee to elect Deborah Lee, Laramie County Clerk.
The redesigned 2018 Ford Expedition is exceeding all expectations. Power, comfort, tech, Laramie Peak Motors in Wheatland is ready to get you in the driver's seat. With the new 10-speed transmission, it's best in class in towing for SUVs. Storage capabilities have never been better, and the Wi-Fi hotspot keeps everyone happy. As far as what the experts say, Motor Trend says Expedition is now the class leader. Kelley Blue Book says there's simply no comparison. So what do you have to say? Come test drive one today. Check out our Expedition inventory at Laramie Peak Motors.
Wyoming families work hard, plan for the future, and live within our means. Conservative Republican Foster Friess believes that government should do the same. Meet Foster Friess.
I'm Foster Friess. Everyone talks about stabilizing the state budget, but we first need to let you know what's in it. Wyoming is one of only 3 states that hasn't opened its books to the people. That's unacceptable.
As governor, Foster Friess will open the books, demanding full transparency and putting Wyoming taxpayers before special interests. Because that's the kind of accountability Wyoming families deserve.
I can't be bought. I'm not taking special interest money for my campaign, and as governor, I won't take a salary. It's time to take away special interest seat at the table and give it back to you.
Conservative Republican Foster Friess for governor. Paid for by Friess for governor. Approved by Foster Friess.
Day weather at the top and bottom of each hour on AM650 KGAB.
7:19 is the time. It's AM650 KGAB Radio. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Phone number to get involved, 632-6500 outside Wyoming, 888-503-6500. John B. Martinez. I wish I could roll it the way you did.
John B. Romero Martinez.
See, that always sounds so good to my ear, but I can never make my mouth do that. It just doesn't work that way.
I appreciate it.
So, he's running for House District 44 here in Wyoming. And one of the things we were talking about during the course of the break is one of your big issues would be education. So what would you like to achieve in education? While we're in that, since I mentioned budget, we'll have to talk about the education budget at the same time.
Education is important, and again, I'm running for office mainly because too many working families live paycheck to paycheck, and they're trying their best to make ends meet. And I believe that helping the least among these shouldn't be a partisan issue. So I think we need to look at those issues, and I'm running to help break these tired notions of what it means to be Republican. But when I look at education, it's just an issue that when we look at it, we have to handle a lot of things at the local level. We need to make a turn around a corner, real simply, and like to kind of focus on that.
Okay, so let's talk education budget for a moment, because Wyoming wound up in a bit of a problem. We had a bit of a slowdown here, and of course most of our money comes in from royalties from coal. And when that slowdown happened, well, all of a sudden schools were in a financial problem, and the state was struggling to find the money. Do they raise taxes? Do they cut more? So if you were in office at the time, and if you wind up with this seat, do you have a strategy for handling that, or a way you'd like to see the state go when it comes to financing our schools?
Yeah, and first I got to get past the primaries against my opponent.
Yeah.
If I can win the seat, I would say, again, education is critical. It's one of those problems you best get right the first time around, or it becomes more complicated and expensive as you go down the road. Let's be honest with ourselves. Education is critical, and so is vocational training. So investing in those priorities is a worthwhile effort and worth the political price of generating new revenue. I went to a lot of those meetings in 2016, and basically a lot of it was robbing Peter to pay Paul, or ciphering money from one to another. And it's just a matter of how do we find ways to fund those items with the slowdown in the industries. It's a fossil. We've been a dinosaur economy for a long time, and I think Governor Meade sees that, which is why he's been trying to work with programs like Endow to really diversify. That talk isn't new. That's been going on since he's been governor, and it's just a matter of getting on board with that program with the governor, and I think there are a lot of legislators that are doing that.
Grab your headphones, because we got a call coming in, and it's probably for you. This is Glenn, who's on the phone with us.
This is Chuck.
Yes, sir. What you got?
Yeah, I heard him say that he switched from independent to Republican, and then just recently he said that he wanted to change what it meant, or the optic of being a Republican. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and what he meant by saying that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in other words, change what it means to be a Republican, or what a Republican appear to be. That would be, I guess, the optics of being a Republican. So your answer to that is what?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the question. Thank you, by the way. So being an independent, first of all, let me talk about the downfall of being an independent. I like a lot, 34% of Americans and a growing number are becoming independent. The problem with being independent, me as a pro-lifer being independent, we have no voice in the independent group because there's no apparatus for us to actually do anything. So being Republican is the best choice if a person tries to be Democrat or another group. There's other groups that say they're pro-life Constitution, but they go out in left field. So I think being Republican is the best option. My comment was to break with tired notions of what it means to be a Republican. That means to say, again, going back to, I believe that helping the least of these shouldn't be a partisan issue. In other words, people that have less, that doesn't mean making the false correlation between personal responsibility and there's a lot of people, especially in my district, living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
So,
well, how does a political party or government in general, how does government help someone who's living paycheck to paycheck? Would you start a program, or would you step aside so the economy can grow? How would you handle that?
I think I stand back and I pretty much look at what does my church teach, and Christianity has a long history, and what the church basically teaches, and I hope I'm getting this right, my bishops I'm sure listening, is to teach both solidarity and subsidiarity. Subsidiarity, how to get a job. Even if it's something small like sweeping a floor. I did that just 2 years ago. It was a modest job, but I was the best floor sweeper I could be, and I think that's what Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. would say, and he was a Republican. His dad was a Republican. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s niece, who visited Wyoming a few years back, Dr. Alveda Scott King, she is Republican. So there's a lot of tired notions about being Republican or that people who are Republican that need to be refreshed. Maybe people need to be reminded. Abraham Lincoln was Republican. So let's look at some of these great legendary forces in the Republican Party, and let's trot our way to another victory.
John Martinez is a candidate for House District 44. Phone number 632-6500. This is Glenn, who's on the phone. Somebody was out there, but I guess they went ahead and hung up. Okay, so if you'd like to try in, again, 632-6500 is the phone number. So as we head into the primary here, if you had a chance to debate your opponent?
Have not had a chance to debate my opponent. I would like to challenge him to 3 debates before the end of this 12-day period. I could do one every 3 days if he'd like to. And anybody who wants to challenge it, I'd welcome a debate. I went to the League of Women Voters debate. I ended up debating the Democrat candidate there. Hadn't had a chance to. He was, and I do understand he's a physician and that he had some stuff going on. So, but have not had a chance to do that. I think it's critical in a democracy to have these debates. At least have people question us both, and so that people can have a good choice. Have enough information to make a good choice. Anyways.
Okay, I want to get back for just a moment because we were talking about education, and I brought up the funding of education. And so the question I asked, and to make sure we have enough money coming in, I want to make sure I understood. Did you want to change the tax structure in Wyoming so maybe we're not so dependent on coal? Did you want to start a new tax? Some people have even mentioned a state income tax or something like that. Or do you have some other plan to make sure that we have enough money coming into the schools? That's where, again, budget cuts could come in to make sure we're cutting enough in other areas to funnel it to education. Where would you find that revenue?
I would say that, currently, where we would find that revenue, I would say, and I have heard all those different ideas. I've seen the state income tax work in other states, and I think that's being discussed, and I think that's something that we need to actually have a conversation about. The problem with that is a lot of people in Wyoming don't like the idea of more taxes, so I don't know how far that would go, but at least we need to have a discussion about it. How do you do it? Well, one of the things, I became a student. I'm part of a national cyber security student association, and one of the things we're learning at Laramie County Community College, even as I retool in the IT sphere, is that Wyoming, whether people know it or not, and I'm sure you know it because you're in news, is that we are going to have the largest wind turbine farm in the nation, and that's just a reality. So as we do an all of the above energy policy, which we do see that those types of jobs are going to take place, so we really need to focus on that technical training. Okay.
Let me squeeze one more call in for you. This is Glenn, who's on the phone with us.
Hey, Glenn, this is Cody. I just had a bit of political advice for your guest there. If you would like to commit political suicide, go ahead and keep talking about it. State income tax. I mean, that's repeatedly over and over again been the absolute death of the candidate. And as far as me, anybody who talks about it, automatic no. So anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there.
And your response is?
And my response is, I understand that. Like I already had addressed that caller's point by saying most people don't want to hear about that kind of tax. I mean, it's something that's already been discussed. So it's not something I invented or created, and it's not a no. It's a John Romero yes, not because I believe in that. I just think we need to look at ways to fund it. And again, my most big point at the end of that conversation piece was that we do have the largest wind turbine farm coming on board quick. So when Republican Governor Matt Mead asks for diversification, he's not asking for diversification because he's retarded. He's saying it because he's a genius. And I'm just going to give him props and give him credit on that. And we really need to look at all options. And one of the biggest ways we can do it, and we're moving forward. We've already asked for cannabis through the legislature to be grown in Wyoming, and we're just waiting on the federal application. And those are Republican majorities on both sides that have voted yes on that. So this is not new. If you're at the legislature and you're going to the meetings, you see more than what's in the newspaper.
Well, you got more calls on the line, but I'm